Good morning, Metalheads here, net. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the highly anticipated new album from Decapitation, entitled Death Atlas. This is the 8th studio album from modern extreme metal juggernauts Decapitation, who have made a bit of a name for themselves by continuously provoking and prodding all kinds of people with records such as The Harvest Floor, Karma Bloody Karma, and Humanure, the latter of which probably wins the award for being one of the most inherently disgusting records ever made. And side note, if you even attempt to argue otherwise, then clearly you have never even seen the album cover, let alone listen to the fucking thing. But starting with 2012's Monolith of Inhumanity, Decapitation went far beyond simply provoking and prodding. In fact, suddenly they were creating some of the most socially conscious, politically progressive, and provocative death metal, not just of that year, but of this generation. Like, we weren't just dealing with subtle, middle-of-the-road political tripe or gore-sploitation. The band was taking, arguably, the genre's roots in violence and misogyny and destruction, and twisting them on their heads to create these really powerful modern stories. Take, for instance, a song like Forced Gender Reassignment, which takes brutal death metal's inherent violence and misogyny and twists it on its head into a revenge rape fantasy. Or a track like Jesus Christ is Suicide, which goes far beyond simply saying religion is bad and paints a scenario in which religion leads people to slaughter, leads them to enslavement, leads them to suicide. It's not just the best metal album released that year, it's one of the best metal albums released this decade. In fact, minor spoiler alert, you could definitely expect to see this on my top 20 albums of the decade list in the next month. It was so fucking good that it almost hurt Decapitation, because when they released Anthropocene Extinction, you immediately had a bunch of fucking fanboys going, well, it's not as good as Monolith, so who cares? Granted, it still did pretty well, but the general consensus was ultimately, yeah, it's good, but Monolith is better, so let's just go listen to Monolith. I can't really say I blame people, because Anthropocene does inherently repeat the same formula that made Monolith such a success rather than evolve anything. But hey, if it ain't broke, then don't fucking fix it, you know? I still think it's a really great record. It kind of goes without saying then that the expectations for a new studio album from Decapitation are catastrophically high, especially when the band has spent the last year pushing Medium Rarities, a compilation record that was meant to completely wipe the slate clean and basically give Decapitation no excuse not to make a full record. That record, of course, now being known as Death Atlas, which on one hand you'd think stands a pretty good chance at wowing people away, considering it has no fucking competition at this time of the year. But on the other hand, you have to acknowledge that it comes at the end of what has been an incredibly stacked year for death metal, and a particularly progressive one for that matter. A lot of bands that perhaps took note of Monolith's lyrical and musical advancements and have applied them to their own sound. Take, for instance, Sam Hesera by Venom Prison, which, another minor spoiler alert, is in my top 5 for this year. And again, Anthropocene, as solid as it was, just didn't wow people the way Monolith did. So Decapitation, we're gonna have to put a lot of fucking effort and a lot of fucking thought into Death Atlas in order to make sure that it was truly the killer record that stood out amongst the pack in 2019. And to that, I say, mission accomplished, boys. Mission fucking accomplished, because you made something really special here. Really fucking special. I knew to expect a great album. I mean, you know, I just knew that. Anthropocene, despite being somewhat recycled, was a great album. So why would I not expect another great album? Of course I'd expect a great album. But what I didn't expect was to be absolutely fucking floored. To be fucking devastated. To be fucking annihilated mentally and physically by this record. I mean, it just fucked me up. I mean, these guys have never played it safe. They've never played it soft. They've never been a particularly approachable, warm, friendly band. Maybe in their personal lives, yes, but on the musical front, fuck no. And yet I can't help but say that previous hyper-provocative, hyper-brutal endeavors from this band look like a trip into fucking Candyland compared to Death Atlas. An album that forecasts an apocalypse brought on by human corruption, greed, and ignorance. An album that sonically lays down the fate of mankind. An album that isn't interested in any semblance of hope. An album that abandons fantasy and allegories and metaphors and simply grabs you by the throat. It says you fucked up, throws you to the side like a piece of fucking dead meat, and laughs at you. To put it very fucking simply, Cattle Decapitation are not fucking around on Death Atlas. From the moment this thing starts, I am immediately wrapped into this album's world with some terrifying spoken word sections highlighted by glooming synths, building orchestrations, eventually launching into the massive opening track with walls of blast beats, guitars, synths, crushing with this almost black metal kind of effect underneath pure death metal carnage. From there on, you are simply pummeled to a pulp. It doesn't matter how the album does it, whether it's through groovier, more mid-paced laden tracks, or through some sample-induced interludes, or even through the odd endeavor into post-metal. It just consistently fucking pummels you. It pulls you down. It holds you down. It fucking puts its foot right on your neck. I can very honestly say that the moment this album emerged from my speakers, my jaw fucking dropped. I could probably go on forever about how fucking intense, brutal, and in-your-face the music is on here. I mean, it's everything that Cattle Decapitation have done so well in the last decade, refined and amped up to the highest possible level. Tracks like the Geoside, Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts display everything that Cattle Decapitations love about this band. The attitude, the ferocity, the violence, the no-nonsense politics. These tracks are so effective that even when they're stacked side by side, it never feels overbearing, it never feels repetitive, it never feels like the band is recycling or repeating themselves. It flows remarkably fucking well for an album this inherently intense. And Cattle Decapitation are trying some really cool things musically on this record. Take, for instance, Vulturous, which plays with a lot more groove-laden death metal instrumentation to create something super chunky, super powerful, super fucking badass. Or Bring Back the Plague, which feels really large and epic and cinematic thanks to its post-metal tendencies that give it a little bit of extra atmosphere and human emotion. Don't worry, it doesn't go into like some weird black gaze territory, but it does open Cattle Decapitation to some new melodic and atmospheric territory that I wouldn't have expected from them before. But what I truly, really love about this record is just how much more fucking blunt Cattle Decapitation are on here than they've been on previous records. This album is strictly about the apocalypse and how no matter when it happens or how it happens, it will be humanity's fault. And Cattle Decapitation even take a weirdly sinister joy in the idea of humanity losing in a battle against Mother Nature. Even arguing that it is necessary for anything to actually get better. Arguing in the opening track, Geoside, apocalypse, sudden death of a metropolis, we fucking needed this. And later on near the very end of the track, Travis Ryan squealing, screeching, pounding into the microphone, fuck all humanity, fuck the future, fuck all mankind. He calls out the corruption and the greed of capitalist American corporations in a track like Vulturous, saying the carcass beckons to the buzzards entitled to its pound of flesh. The wake cleans the remnants of once fertile lands, cleared by corruptions, distressed by the fucking shit-stain man. Living only for ourselves, anything at any time, as if tomorrow we will die, we are Vulturous. I mean, musically, this track had already floored me, as I've already made clear. But lyrically as well, I couldn't help but sit down on my fucking couch over there and just go, fuck, he's right, they're gonna fucking kill us all because they want $1 million. I mean, you can find incredibly dark, incredibly blunt, incredibly violent and sadistic passages like that throughout the entire album. There are no distractions with revenge rape fantasies or religion or whatever. Cattle Decapitation want to make it clear this is about the end of the fucking world and how happy they will be when mankind is fucking wiped from the earth. Take, for instance, the track With All Disrespect, where they say, your blood, it flows with failure. Can't help it, it's in your nature. Do you know you're the enemy? And enemies we delete. Can you hear the end coming? The hunted now does the hunting, and now we bring home the meat. Particularly a big fan of Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts, where Cattle Decapitation take the very common bleeding heart liberal phrase thrown around by conservatives and use it to throw back and deconstruct the fallacy of conservative logic. Be still our bleeding hearts, death is part of life, embrace time's eraser. Ditch the ignorant philanthropy, the scale has tipped and not in our favor. Ending the track on, human life is simply not sustainable. How much more blunt can you get than that? I should not have spoken so soon now that I'm looking at the lyrics for fucking the title track, Death Atlas, where the band reflects on the nature of humanity and its place in the earth in its final moments, saying, to be alive is to survive everything, to make do with anything until we die. To be alive is to squander everything, to stumble towards anything, to feel alive. That is, it's actually kind of beautiful. That's fucking poetry. God, and I can't give enough credit to Travis Ryan as well. All this is for naught if it weren't for the incredibly versatile, dynamic, and flexible vocal performance out of Travis Ryan, who at this point I will happily proclaim as the most interesting and engaging and entertaining frontman in all of extreme music. What else can I say, man? What else can I say, man? It's fucking Cattle Decapitation. What they have created here is absolutely sonically devastating. They have never sounded this pissed off. They have never sounded this urgent. They have never sounded this fucking infuriated and hopeless. And they've also never sounded this right. I mean, they're not wrong. The world is fucking falling to shit, and it's our own fucking fault because we elect people that will destroy the world. We drive vehicles that will destroy the world. We do things that will consistently destroy this fucking earth. Cattle Decapitation don't just channel that into an album that says, we gotta fucking save the planet. They channel it into something cathartic, something powerful, something that feels so fucking real because it is. It's not just a bunch of fucking pansy-ass fucking politicians standing around a room going, we need to start planting trees. Like, of course we need to plant trees. We fucking know that. You fucking dolts. You fucking idiots. Now, it's hard to tell where this album will stand in the grand spectrum of music history, but at this current moment, I can honestly say I think I like this record a little bit more than Monolith in Humanity, or at the very least, as much. It is arguably their most ambitious, it's lyrically their darkest, it's their most honest, it's their most revealing. It's a true evolution and progressive of everything that made that album so fucking important and powerful when it came out. And dare I say, damn near close to it being a perfect fucking record. The only thing that's semi-holding me back from doing so is the argument that Cattle Decapitation have embraced a little bit of a shtick these last few years. And you're not objectively wrong if you were to argue that. But as I noted before, if it ain't broke, don't fucking fix it. And not only do they have the band, fixed what isn't broken, but they've refined it and they've improved upon it. Sure, if you want to really fucking nitpick, if you want to really dig in there, I'm sure you could just, go, whatever, it's just like the last album, And for the record, some people already have. I've spoken to a couple people that are just like, yeah, whatever, it's political, but whatever, it's boring, whatever. And I don't know what to tell you, I guess. I really don't know. But all I can say is that, fuck you. If this is a shtick, then it's a shtick that fucking works. And I love this album. And Jesus Christ, may I add, whoever's decision it was to release an album that basically blames the apocalypse on human greed and ignorance on fucking Black Friday, on fucking Thanksgiving weekend, give that person a fucking raise. Like, Jesus, that is on par with Slayer releasing God Hates Us All on 9/11. But that was by accident, and this is on purpose. Give that person a raise. They've earned it. 4.5 out of 5, honestly. I would recommend this to fucking anyone who loves extreme music. To fucking anyone excited for something progressive and intelligent and really spicy and controversial out of their death metal. Not just the standard gore-sploitation and caveman riffs. I will say that if you fall into the category of being a much more conservative music listener, the much more blunt, inherently liberal political aspects of this record may drive you a little bit. But hey, that sounds like more of a you problem than a me problem, so fuck it. If you don't want politics in your music, then I suggest you just stop listening to music. I don't really know what to tell you there. This is one of my favorite albums of the year. You can definitely expect to see this on my best albums of the year list. I'll be playing this for years to come for sure, especially since I have this delicious fucking vinyl, which I've been jamming for a while now, and I consistently get floored every single time I listen to it. If you're brand new to Cattle Decapitation, I would say approach this thing with caution. Maybe listen to Monolith first and work your way up. We'll see. But do try and sink your teeth into this album nonetheless, because I honestly don't think you'll find anything this intelligent and satisfying from death metal this year. And again, that's saying a lot considering the stellar year that this genre has had. So 4.5 out of 5, stellar record, stellar statement, stellar everything from one of the most stellar extreme metal bands of this generation. Definitely fucking check this out, unless you're, a fucking loser, in which case don't, I guess. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe to get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.